Welcome everybody to another CIRF report. This one is special. I am including something that a lot of people have been missing lately is the Sidereal zodiac. We're including that because I did have some little bit of extra time and I got that tool working. Now I can't promise that every time I'm going to include the Sidereal zodiac, but in today's CIRF report, it is going to be there and it's going to play a big factor in our solution. The tropical astrology is associated with the influence, and this slide here is the overview of the influences. I'm going to go through this shortly, and then the sidereal is more of the solution, and that's explained in the beginner's guide. For those of you who are new here, what we're looking for is the biggest influence that's going to be affecting us. And we look at all sorts of different things. We look at astrology. We look at the collective unconscious via the dream bot. We look at the collective dreams to see what the subconscious at a collective level is doing and what it's dreaming. And then we roll the coins, toss the coins for the I-Ching reading. And in today's, by the way, it's uniting. Once we get the influence, then it's a different story to know what the solution is. That's where we look at, we go back to the I-Ching because, as you know, you may or may not know that the I-Ching has generally two hexagrams. The first hexagram is the original, and then you apply the changes, and that second hexagram becomes the solution for our CIRF report. And then sometimes the dream bot, the collective unconscious, has the solution in it. And today it actually does. The solution, or a hint to the solution, is the deep truth. But the big meme in the collective unconscious is connectedness. So you already see an overlap between the I-Ching uniting and the dreambot connectedness. Now, what about the astrology? Well, Venus, remember those 4 trines? Those are still there. Venus goes into Gemini. Can you think of anything more uniting than that? Gemini is very friendly. It can get along with just about everybody. With Venus in there, now we're bringing harmony and love to an already friendly person. And so it is uniting. We also have a Libra full moon. Libra is very harmonious. Now we do have some T-squares, and we'll talk about those. And we also have some trines. This astrology is all over the place, but there's several instances of unitedness, of connectedness in the astrology. So we've got a direct hit. Might as well just be a congruency of one. This is the tightest overlap that I think I've ever seen across these 3 ideas. All right. Let's get started with the DreamBot next. And this is the DreamBot. Let's close in on it. There is a lot here. This is going to be a really important CIRF report from all sorts of different angles. I'm going to skip a lot in the DreamBot because it's chock full of information. Basically, you have 2 memes. You have the red and the orange being the stronger. That's the connectedness. So that's the influence across the board is connectedness. I won't read off these words, but they're metaphors for connectedness, including fish. Like fish rarely go individually. They go in schools of fish. This is kind of a metaphor. And onward we go, like the forest. See the forest through the trees. It's a connected version of all the trees. It equals forest. So these are these metaphors for connectedness, and the rest of the words get even tighter than that. But the red arrows is deep truth. It's like words like subconscious and conscious. So it's like a consciousness, but the information in there in truth, it's very heavy in knowledge, wisdom. And so we call it deep truth. Now, I do have some linguistics, and I want to point these out because these could be very critical. As we know in the past, the DreamBot does see in advance, and these linguistics can be very accurate about what's coming next. The first linguistics is not per se a prediction of an actual event. It's kind of more of an idea. This is important because the word yellow is at the very top. It's the number one word, most common word, surging in the dreams in the last 24 hours. Yellow, what does that even mean? I've got a separate slide for that, so hold that thought. But yellow colors annoyed. Okay. So just hold that. I'm going to explain more of that later. The second linguistic says information Saturday, wild truth. Now this really goes well, I think, with the expected days of darkness, truth being revealed, cues, statements of the Great Awakening. This now, does Saturday mean something? Does Saturday the 4th? Some people are talking about the 4th of April. Is this when all this secret information starts coming out? This wild truth? That's a question mark, but I find it very interesting. Then linguistics number 3 is taste forest soon. Now, there's a lot of ways you can take that. One idea is the Run Forest Run video of Ellen DeGeneres. That could be implied here, but I was also thinking about what in a crash scenario, for some reason the economy crashes. This is our taste of the forest, basically getting back to our natural roots in a forced kind of way. But so you take that or leave it. I think the strongest one here is is linguistics 2, information Saturday, wild truth. But yellow, what do you make of the top word yellow? Let me read this. What does the color yellow mean? I'm at the website empoweryourselfwithcolorpsychology.com. The color yellow relates to acquired knowledge. It is the color which resonates with the left or logic side of the brain, stimulating our mental faculties and creating mental agility and perception. Being the lightest hue of the spectrum, the color psychology of yellow is uplifting and illuminating, offering hope, happiness, cheerfulness, and fun. Does that mean the collective unconscious is expecting hope and happiness? I think that confirms last week's report, where the collective is winning, and we're on this alliance fight, and we're winning the war, and there's a lot of hope on the other side of this, as you know, in confirming linguistics that the wild truth is going to come out. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on here, but this is an unusual Dreambot run, and I wanted to kind of go through the main points there. Let's get into the astrology now. Gosh, guys, there's so much astrology, and I forgot to get my highlighter out. We're looking at Venus going into Gemini. I already talked about that. It's harmonizing, and Gemini's already harmony, and very cerebral and mental. It's an air sign. Venus going into Gemini, wonderful. So things that were harmoning, two harmonizing entities getting together, that should be very uniting. Then we have all these aspects that we saw before. I would rather not go through these now one by one, but I am going to show this slide at the last part of our video so that you can come back and refer to it. We're going to actually see some alignments that aren't on here, because this is only alignments with 2 planets. And so we're going to see a lot of alignments that have 3 or more alignments, like T-squares, grand trines, and all that, and even a full moon. So let's get to it. On Thursday the 2nd, you can already see how we've got the moon with a quadruple opposition. And this is a balancing act with our emotions. The key to Thursday the 2nd is your emotional stability, your emotional balancing. You have to balance your emotions. The moon in this case is in its home sign of Cancer. And so all should be well with the emotions. But if you start getting into this emotional quagmire of change, you see this is a T-square. And so the T-squares with Uranus is that you can be trapped in this afraid of change, this this imbalance. If you get an imbalance because of the change, and what's on the other side of this T-square? Well, the main thing is Mars. So if you start fighting the change, you're going to create obstacles and you're going to be trapped in this emotional quagmire. By the way, let's not forget that Venus has got these quad trines over to Mars, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter. And so it is a smorgasbord of great, easy energy for Venus. She even has an opportunity for the emotions. Emotions have an opportunity with Venus, with more finance. You see all these things coming down with the prosperity plan, or whatever they call that, for businesses that might be failing, or people who can't afford their rent or mortgage, and the federal government's going to step in and help. Like fitness clubs. Both of fitness clubs around here have agreed to freezing memberships, so we don't have to cancel the memberships to save money, because they're closed right now. So there's going to be some great opportunities. I know a lot of people that are in a financial heartache, but there's going to be outlets. That's my point, and that's very Venus. Finance. Even the stock market is reversing. I don't know how much longer that'll last. By the way, a lot of these trines with Venus are segmented, or they're dashed. And that means it's on the opposite side. It's on the waning side of the exact position. So Pluto and Jupiter are about to fall off. They're at the end of, they're 4 degrees off of exact conjunction. And then finally, must talk about this, because this is going to be the consistent thread all the way through. Thoughts are not going to be reliable. And starting on Thursday, it's going to be an emotional game, an emotional balancing act. The Mercury and Neptune going conjunct in Pisces. So Mercury is kind of is submerged in water, if you will, and it can be very confusing and dreamy. Your rational mind can play tricks on you. Neptune can play tricks on the rational and the logical. And I can see that playing out if the Great Awakening happens for the collective soon during this week. Then this aspect is going to really play a big factor in it, because what we thought was the truth before, it ain't the truth. And you're going to really have to look for solid evidence, because we've been lied to. And so the premise is going to be off. You've got to check your premise. When you're trying to use logic, you've got to use the premise. We'll talk more extensively about this later. But bottom line is, if you try to fight the change, this is a go with the flow aspect. Uranus square Mars, Uranus square Saturn, Uranus square Saturn and Mars. That's a go with the freaking flow. It's changing. It's not coming back. And that's what Uranus says. And so if you get caught into this fighting the change thing, you're going to get screwed. All right. So it's all about emotions. Emotions are connecting to other people. Venus, she's in the very last stages of Taurus. She's about ready to head into Gemini. All right. So on Friday, the 3rd, Venus has got her easy energy. Uranus still has his hard energy. The cold, hard change is coming. We have a brief, really nice balancing between emotions and ego, and that should feel pretty good and fired up. There's not really anything holding us back other than the change, and it's simple. Just go with the flow, right? Okay, so now Venus heads into Gemini. That's here, and that's very uniting. I already talked about how Gemini can adapt and, can be fickle and all that, but easy to get along with, and has good friends. But Venus is even better at harmonizing. So we've got uniting, and with 4 trines still, we're still looking at very good energy with the uniting kind of mentality. Still have Mercury and Neptune conjunct. This is an exact conjunction here on Friday. So that's the biggest one right here. This is strongest energy. That's probably going to be the most confusing thoughts around this time. And what you thought was true because thought you had good logic, you're going to find out, nope, that wasn't true. I don't know what happened. I was lied to, or Neptune is screwing with me. So you've got to check the assumptions underneath everything that you think is right and true, or you can just kind of avoid the thoughts altogether. That's called diffusion, noticing that they're there and just say hi to them and not really honor what they're trying to say to you, and go for more of the emotions this week. Again, we're not talking about the solution just yet, but start to notice how, you probably want to be avoiding the thoughts this week. It's kind of hard to do unless you're good at diffusion in ACT therapy. All right, Saturday is an emotional adjustment. You've got 2 inconjuncts with Mars and Saturn. And Mars and Saturn, this is the ability to move forward is Mars and get stuff done. Well, I mean, it's adjusting to the emotions. So that's kind of hard. And then it's also, if I try to fight this change, I'm going to create more obstacles. So it's probably best just to use this trine over to Venus and just harmonize. That's what this is showing us. And meanwhile, Venus is just doing her work and financially transforming. Oh, by the way, what I didn't mention was that some of the scuttlebutt in the Trump administration is that along the lines of Venus as financier is, and this is transformation and change. Trump has nationalized, or is in the process of nationalizing, the Federal Reserve. And that was the little leak in the mainstream media, but not much of it, to confirm it. And I think on the other side of this great revealing, the deep truth that comes out according to the collective unconscious, is going to be eye-watering. And part of that's going to be the financial structure. All right, Sunday the 5th. Emotions are balanced with the crazy thoughts. Now, here's what's weird is that, remember, talk about the Mercury and Neptune. We now have an opportunity with positive transformation. So here's kind of a window, but in all cases, a window of opportunity of expansive, positive transformation. But again, Pluto's similar to Uranus in that you're not really know what the outcome is going to be really looking like. It feels more like death, and that's kind of a paradox here. Pluto always starts to feel like the end, when really it's it's a trick. It's always the beginning. The end of something is the beginning of something else. And Jupiter maybe puts a positive spin on this, and it's easy to see that it's a new take. Something got destroyed, yeah, but you're more seeing the seeds that are growing instead. So there's an opportunity for thoughts, actually, this dreamy thoughts, to show you this opportunity to really get your inner power, and it's a really positive aspect. And meanwhile, then opposing the moon in Virgo, the emotions are kind of attention to detail, and you got to balance that with these tricky thoughts that have an opportunity to see the positive side of the transformation. All right. On Monday, we have a multiple grand trine, Venus, Moon, and then this for folks here. Very positive, and it's just the beginning of more grand trines. It's going to start to sway into, as the moon continues to progress into Libra, and it's going to be a grand air trine. So let's go there. So now we're already on Tuesday the 7th. This is when the energy starts to get more congruent. On Tuesday the 7th, we have a kite formation, extremely positive in that you've got ego with fire Aries, ego in the first part of its cycle, of its new cycle, and it's opposing. It's technically in the opposition to the moon. So now we're working on a full moon. We're 8 degrees away. And this is a kite formation with Venus, Mars, and the moon. And it's all air. So Aquarius, Mars in Aquarius is a revolution. This is a revolution type of point here. And then Venus in Gemini, it's a revolution in uniting and harmonizing. And then the moon in Libra is another very harmonizing, united kind of thing through our emotions, probably empathy in that one. And then later on in the day, so that was this grand air trine is 9 a.m. on the 7th, and then on the 7th, Tuesday, and then the full moon is actually 12 hours later, 9:34:46 p.m. And this is daylight central time. All right, so there's a lot here, though. I'm going to pause here on this chart a little bit. Basically, the full moon is 18 degrees, 44 minutes in Libra. And we talked a little bit about it, but it's the unity aspect right in the middle, pretty much right in the middle of Libra. So it kind of has a Aquarius stance to it. So this is kind of a collective uniting, and then we have of course the sun in Aries, and it gives you the fire and the start overness. Now that's not normally a full moon arrangement. So on the surface so far, we have a little increase in energy because it's a full moon. It's kind of instills some craziness. Some people can handle that energy. Some people can't. It's kind of in between two cycles. It's directly in the middle of two new moons. And so it's not the start of a process. It's kind of in the middle of a process, but this is where it's kind of the climax of the energy. But so now we got this extra energy just because it's a full moon. And then we have a T-square with that same Jupiter-Pluto positive aspect, positive transformation, positive power is one of the points of the trap. T-squares is a trap. And so if we get too invested in this transformation, and too quickly see this positive side of the newness of the end game and the new beginning, if you get too involved in that, it's going to be a trap. It's going to cause you more obstacles. And when I say a lot of obstacles, I mean quite a few, because you've got two planets here squared off to you actually have three planets here squared off to the sun on this side, and then two planets over here on this. So it's a pretty heavy trap. And so in this case, I think it's just going to be emotional awareness and feeling the influence of uniting, harmonizing with the greater good of the collective. Now, the ego can get trapped in that transformation, yes, but realize that this is exactly what the I-Ching is going to talk about later. It's the same exact it's almost verbatim. The ego gets trapped in transformation. So look out for that. And then lastly, on Wednesday the 8th, it's another T-square. It's a different one. And again, it's the moon, Mars, and Uranus. Uranus again. Now it's on the waning side of that T-square. And the moon is creating one of those points. So it's quickly moving and only lasts about a half a day here. But there's a huge pressure here to do something about the change. That's the Mars square off to Uranus. The pressure, lots of pressure. That's the other thing I didn't mention, but the pressure to see the good thing in this transformation. And it's probably best to just not try to do that and just go with the emotional full moon. Be good with those strong emotions. Feel the extra crazy energy there, but transition into sensing that there's a collective harmonizing going on with that full moon. Okay, and then back to Wednesday, you've got that T-square, so a lot of pressure to face that change. And it's probably best to just balance your emotions with the change. That's it. It's very simple. All right, let's get into the I-Ching now. All right, so we asked the collective to answer our plea for the biggest influence that will be affecting us in between 4/2, April 2nd, and 4/8, April 8th, 2020. And we got hexagram 8, which is holding together, uniting. Surprise, surprise. This is water over earth. It's a very springtime kind of arrangement. Water, rain over earth. Yeah. So we're holding together. High-level teamwork is achieved when the right players on the right team share a clear goal at the right time. The team forms its relationships in a delicate manner. Chemistry is brewed in the vast shared experience. If its leader can rise to the challenge, the team will prosper in political and business affairs, just as in basketball it's hard to win without a strong center. Now, remember that T-square. When you are trapped in a transformative process, that's going to be, let's just review that because that's really important, and I'll read it again. But mainly on that full moon day, in the evening of Tuesday, the 7th of April, the T-square, ego gets trapped in a transformation, okay? That's that massive T-square, double, triple T-square. All right, that's what it's referring to. So let's read it again. When you are trapped in a transformative process, that's the full moon on the 7th in the evening, especially, plus or minus 24 hours, inspiration rises, whether through dreams, intuition, or events, to reveal the way through. This, my friends, is actually already leaking into the solution. But it's, by the way, when inspiration rises, what is that? That's the gateway to emotions. So we're right there exactly with the astrology, the moon. Follow the moon throughout this week and feel thy emotions. Cherish how the pathway leads you to understand your inner world. At the same time, recognize the importance of how your beliefs shape your experiences. Uniting is a message about looking for this connection. The connection about how your beliefs shape your experiences and how your experiences lead you to your own inner world. Again, this is going to look really similar to the solution that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But we got to go through the lines. Line 2, the best way is to respond out of a desire to contribute to the greater good. This approach has dignity and leads to good fortune. So, the influence is to be a part of the collective goal. That's the influence. That's not the solution necessarily, but feel that influence across all of the astrology that's happening, across this big old global pandemic, whatever you want to call it. Then line 3 is friends and professional relationships, right balance with each other. Be open to your intimates, sociable with casual friends, and cautious with all others. Develop strong relationships with Okay, let me start over. Developing strong relationships with weak or dishonest characters will diminish your position. So, make sure in this whole influence of collective matters and uniting that you're not uniting with the strong or the people who have different values than you and different goals than you. All right. Oh, that was a mouthful. Let's take a quick break. This is a paid advertisement, and we'll come back and talk about the solution next. and intervention.com is where you can get the help that you need, especially for this solution, because the solution itself is about diving into the well. We've had this before. It's water over wind. It's hexagram 48. It's about going deep. And I already told you, I already leaked out that the influence is directly related to the well. We're also going to get into sidereal astrology, so hold on. All right, throughout all the cultures of the world, the well has served a symbol for that which sustains life and provides a constant, inexhaustible source of nourishment. Beware of shallow thinking. What does that sound like? That sounds like Mercury conjunct Neptune. Be aware of shallow thinking. Have a substance out in the real world. Like a little learning, it can be dangerous. The image of the well suggests that going further within produces greater clarity. Be patient, penetrate your problems and your own nature as deeply as you can. Self-development is key to reaching down to tap the clear water. If you do not lower your bucket into the depths, you're likely to come up empty. There is a danger of being overly focused on knowledge or what is correct, which will disconnect you from what can be gained by the experience. In this, your self-development can be arrested. Now, let me just say that this brings it all together, because we're going to look at the astrology, the sidereal astrology of it's the couple days before the full moon, but it's, let me get my pointer out again. This, if we back up, this is where Venus has just left Taurus and now is in Gemini, and it's just left hexagram 8. This is what our first hexagram was. So we're spot on with where Venus was. Why do I choose Venus? Because when all the influence says harmonizing and uniting, I think you've got to go with Venus. So I went with Venus, and lo and behold, the first part of Venus's position throughout the week was in hexagram 8 in the Rave Mandala, which is human design. Unbelievable. But now halfway through, and as Venus goes into Gemini a little bit further, as we enter into the full moon, Venus will actually be in hexagram 20. So that's why I chose to read with hexagram 20 out of the Rave Mandala. And it says, recognition and awareness in the now, which transforms understanding into right action. This is about depth. This is about intuition, but it's also about your human design strategy and authority. If you don't know what your strategy and authority are, I highly recommend that you click the link below to get a reading, and I'll help you through that. It's absolutely critical that you're going through these careful times in the correct strategy and authority for your particular design. So, the gate 20 is a purely existential gate that helps you focus in the present and supports your capacity to survive as yourself. This energy frequency is and must be totally absorbed in the present moment. That's the only thing that was left out of the I-Ching, was that it's the now part of this. And now we return to the sidereal astrology and we go to the zodiac. We are, Venus is our kind of our highlight because of the unity. It's in Taurus. So this becomes, the sidereal astrology becomes part of our solution. And that confirms hexagram 20, which is experiential. This is an experiential deepening. This is, you're going deep inside, but you're deep in the moment. You're going deep inside in that moment and not thinking at all. In the world of human design, you don't go into the mind to ascertain right action. Right action comes from your authority. And in this case, it can only come into that moment, deep in that moment. And Taurus, there is no better than to experience the true moment of now. There is no better. So now there are obviously disadvantages of Taurus, which just kind of be bullheaded and not very adaptable, well, we've already covered that. So we're going to just have to get over that stubbornness. But there's a huge potential for our awareness and success in this week by being a good Taurus and experiencing the current moment in accordance with Rabe Mandala hexagram 20. Right? All right, now time for the biggest slide of all, which is the solution slide. And I'll use this. Okay, here we go. For the astrology, we talked a lot about Venus being the highlight of this for uniting. I used the same picture. We had different hexagrams, same outcomes, same influence. We're united. And I spelled that wrong. Untied. I didn't mean to say untied. I meant united. Wow. We're untied, united, and connected, all right? The solution is dive deep, contemplate, pause, experience the solution before action. That's the Taurus aspect of the deepening. Be fully present through the five senses and the sixth sense, your intuition. Intuition coming from the emotional body and the subconscious. Emotions are subconscious. Remember that thoughts are suspect. Mercury conjunct Neptune. Beware of shallow ego level thoughts. Watch for rational thought. Make sure you check your assumptions. What you thought was rational before has suddenly become irrational. That's probably going to be a trend for a while. Pay attention to your inner authority and design strategy. This is straight from Human Design. Again, get your reading today and sign up for a Human Design reading so that you know what your strategy and design are. Ultimately, you got to plumb deeper. This is time for meditation, dream work, automatic writing. This is where you get in a meditative state and let the pencil or let the keyboard do the writing. You can do this with automatic voicing as well. So you can record your voice and just let whatever needs to speak, your subconscious, let it speak. Don't try to force the words to come on. Spiritual tuning, and I think the biggest potential for an earth-based Taurus kind of deepening would be earthing. Earthing is where you're walking around the ground, connecting to the earth, connecting to Gaia without any shoes on, barefoot. So you're connecting skin to earth. And some people lie down in the grass. You can walk the beach. You can even walk on concrete is better than staying inside, but it's an opportunity to really experience the now moment. Ultimately, it's deepening, but in the now. Deeper experiences daily. And we are not untied. We're united. All right, everybody. I will put this on the last slide, and if there's any comments below, make sure that you comment those below and ask them in a comment in what am I trying to say? All right. So let's start over with, this is the slide. Remember, it doesn't have the T-squares. It doesn't have the full moon on there, I don't believe. And it doesn't have the grand air trines. And remember, those are layered. Those are multiple grand trines all together. All right, that's all I got. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.